David and Frank, and this build is called An Altered Fate. It's for actually in support of my wife's second book, and this is the actual final battle scene. This is basically the big climax of the book.
Okay. This is awesome. It's an incredibly huge build here. So if you want to take us through a little bit of the details and kind of what's going on in the build?
Sure. Yeah. It started off with the boat. The idea is there's these river ships that are powered by magic, and I wanted to do something that's a cross between a medieval sailing ship and a Mississippi sternwheeler. So if you look in the back, there's these two guys, they're wielders, and they're actually moving the wheel with their abilities. So yeah, so I like doing like timber framing, and I just wanted to do a big, massive. I never really tackled a boat before, so for this, the thing that freaked me out the most was the bow, getting that shape. So that's kind of what I started with, and kind of worked my way back.
Okay, very nice. And then up here on the rock, you've got all sorts of cool stuff as well.
Exactly, yeah. So it started with the boat because I wanted to depict the boat from the books, and then I'm like, well, you know what? In the background, maybe I'll do the river. And the river turned into, okay, well, maybe I should do the entire, final scene with the manor house and the last battle. So it just kind of got out of hand from there. So.
Wow. So yeah, you mentioned the big house here. What's that like? Is there like detailed interiors in there, or did you just kind of build the outside?
I just built the outside. My first BrickCon, I learned that building interiors is great, but you can't really display them really in a convention setting. And also, they tend to make the builds kind of weaker and harder to transport. So I ended up just focusing on the exterior and making it as fun as possible. And one cool thing, though, is if you look on the side there's a hole in the wall. In the book, basically, there's the two protagonists from the book. They're in that second floor, and there's a guy who basically can just explode rock, basically. So he basically rips the wall down, and then there's someone with telekinesis who yanks the two people out and pulls them out, and that's kind of how the battle begins. So if you look in the side in that hole, it's a fully furnished room with like bed and chairs and rugs, the whole thing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And then if you want to talk a little bit more about this rock work, what was that like for you? Do you enjoy doing that type of work? I know a lot of the times that can be kind of repetitive, just putting a lot of rock down.
For sure, yeah, and it's actually there's a funny story about that, because I had focused on getting the elevation and the pathing from the river to the upper level, and I had everything lined up, but then I started adding all the details on the top, like the plants and the buildings. And when I started staging it the day before BrickCon, I realized my elevations were all off. I literally had a building, like the front half of that building was in the middle, and the gate was on the side. So I panicked, and I basically it took me 7 hours to fix it. Yeah. So a lot of the roads you see here didn't exist, and I kind of had to fix it after the fact. So it was pretty brutal.
So yeah, making changes right up to the show.
Yeah. And what's crazy is there's so many components to this build. My kids helped a ton. Like, you see all the water here you see? I couldn't have done it without them. And my friend helped me with the border. And in the book, there's this race of people called Imarans. They're not human, but they're like 7.5 feet tall. They're pretty powerful, and they kind of regulate the use of, or actually the unlawful use of magic, or the abuses of magic rather. And in order to do those, I actually bought custom armor from, I think, was it BrickCon or Brick Warriors?
Okay.
And spears. And my buddy, he airbrushed the armor. And then the spears are also airbrushed. We actually took a clay on the spear tips so that we can kind of get that overmolded effect.
Yeah. Wow, so that's awesome. Yeah, and I love how those turned out. It's really neat there. The great looking soldiers.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be tall, so I actually added a 1x1 plate to make them a little bit taller.
Yeah.
And what's also really cool is Dave from Cape Madness. He got all those custom capes. Like, you see those black, like, phantom-looking creatures. That character in the red, she's like this. She was an illusionist, and she was experimented on, and so now her illusions have substance. So all those black creatures you're seeing there are her manifestations of that. And then those really cool melty capes, Dave did those. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, really great. So what's this build break down then, like to move it?
I primarily, it breaks down into 48 by 48 sections, or 15-inch by 15-inch sections, with the exception of the manor house in the back there. The middle section is actually one piece, and I took great pains to make that as strong as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual manor house itself, I found an old English manor that was kind of the rough same shape, and but it was a little too plain. So I took another building that was a little more ornate, but it was a little too gaudy for my taste, and I kind of merged the two architectures together. And yeah, so I just tried to make it as strong as possible. If you look in the back, you'll see it's a combination of girders and arches. So yeah.
Gotcha, yeah, and I think it turned out great. And something else you mentioned it was kind of based on your wife's book, and then also that your kids helped with the build, which I think is really cool when you can get your family involved with that. Is that something you try to do with a lot of your builds?
Oh yeah, because I mean, for me, as I used to game a lot, and you know, obviously the kids can't get involved with that, but this is something I can share with them, and they'll bring me stuff that they worked on, and it'll make my head explode with new ideas and how to do things. So, and then literally, there's no way I could do all of this work without help. And it just gives us a chance to to do stuff together. And what's really fun is literally, like I mentioned, I was scrambling the day before just to try and get caught up because I had messed up the elevations. My son did all of the plant work you see in the front, because that's what I had designated Wednesday to do, and I basically ran out of time. So as I was fixing everything, he was doing what I was going to be doing. So yeah, he's pretty talented.
Yeah, so it worked out nicely.
Yeah, he actually made some of the trees too.
Okay. Yeah, and I just noticed those trees actually. That's awesome with the way you've got all those leaves kind of stuck. Yeah, that's a really cool design. Was that based off a particular thing or just kind of messing around with it?
Well, you remember Mark Erickson, Mark of Fulworth? Right. That basic idea, I got that from him, and for me, it's all about strength, with these conventions. So this particular tree here, I use Technic brick to make it really strong, and that's kind of a technique I grabbed from Thomas Rayford, and I kind of customize it for my own ends. And then the other tree, I guess it looked like what is it? Like a conifer but anyway, they call it the Fulworth tree. I actually used a long pipe, like the really long pipe from the Ewok sets, to secure it, and I kind of just make it a little bit bigger. That's kind of what I do. So, but they're really strong.
Yeah, and I think those turned out great. So if someone would be interested in picking up the book that this awesome build is based off of, where would they find that?
Oh, it's on Amazon. Okay. Yeah, my wife's name is Claire Frank, and the series is called Echoes of Imara. Book 1 is To Whatever End, and this is based on book 2, which is called An Altered Fate.
Okay, so awesome. We'll make sure to put a link in the description to that so people can check out the inspiration for this cool build here. Thanks for talking with us.